Apologies for absence.
I received apologies from Councillors Chatterton, Mushtaq and Jabbar, Chair.
Okay, so Councillors Chatterton, Mushtaq and Jabbar. Councillor Jabbar has been at the Green Summit today. He is on his way back, but he might not make it in time. So we're just going to proceed anyway, but he might walk in halfway through the meeting. Item 2, urgent business. I've not been notified of any unless Liz is going to tell me.
No received, Chair.
No, thank you very much. Declarations of interest. Do any members need to declare any interest in the matters to be discussed? Take silence to mean no. So item 4, public question time. I've not been notified of any public questions.
No received, Chair.
That's because we've not had any. Item 5, minutes of the previous meeting, pages 1 to 8. Are members happy to approve those as a correct record?
Approved.
Agreed. Thank you. So that takes us on to item 6, Greater Manchester's Clean Air Plan. And Councillor Shah, you're going to talk to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is a really important item actually because we know due to the health challenge presented by air quality, we've been instructed by government to do something about it, and given that it's an invisible killer, it's taken quite a lot of work to just put it on the radar and get some awareness around it. Because it has no boundaries, we've had to work with the other Greater Manchester authorities to look at a proposal in how we can address this, because government guidelines mean we have really tight timescales in which we have to do this. So today is just about the proposals that we are going to present to government, to be accompanied by the request for additional funding from government to support the introduction of clean air zones, which is a benchmark that government have set us to do, and achieve compliance in the shortest time possible. Further consultation with all affected groups will take place, and during the summer we will do going within our formal consultation period. So I'm just basically asking for sign off and approval of the current programme.
Thanks, Councillor Shah. Do any members wish to speak on this? Councillor Raymond.
Just a question, Chair. No, it's just a comment, not a question. I think this is very important, and thank you for the consultation, because I've already received some really positive feedback with stakeholders, particularly the private hire taxi drivers that you've been speaking to, and that has been greatly appreciated and well received.
Thanks, Councillor Raymond. Do any other members wish to speak on this? Councillor Jakes.
I've read the document, and I think it's commendable in terms of what we're trying to do. But within the document, there's no reference to schools and the quality of outside schools. Are there any plans for the local authority to tackle this issue, this burning issue? Because as you know today, a number of schools across the country have barred cars going anywhere near schools in order to improve the air quality.
Absolutely there is, and our administration pledges are to tackle air quality, especially outside schools, and introduce non-idling zones outside schools, and also a wider educational piece of work which will be consulted with and which will be driven through schools, so it's on everybody's radar. But absolutely, that's really important. And then we also have recently made the announcement about the no smoking policy outside our own buildings and parks, which will play a part towards that as well. But it's, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Chowan.
Just to reinforce what Councillor Shah said, that we also agreed as a full council to introduce health impact assessment, and health zones are one of the priority of this administration, so hopefully that will help to deal with those issues as well.
Thank you, Councillor Chowan. I think before we move on to the next item, it's worth doing some myth busting on what this is not, because I know that there are opposition groups out there that are trying to make some political capital out of this by presenting it as something that it is not. It is not a congestion charge. No. It is a charge on dirty air and polluting vehicles. It does not apply to private cars. And so it cannot be described as a congestion charge. And the reason for this is because more than 1,000 people every year die prematurely because of dirty air, because of inhaling toxic air that is blasted out the back of dirty and the most polluting vehicles. And if you're opposed to this, then that's you saying that you accept that 1,000 people should die prematurely from the consequences of inhaling toxic air. Now, I would encourage anybody who tries to misrepresent this as a congestion charge, if they want to put something factual on their election leaflets, then they need to say that they are in favour of 1,000 people a year in Greater Manchester dying prematurely, because that is what they would be arguing for by opposing this. It's incredibly important that we tackle the consequences of dirty air, that we tackle dirty air, because its consequences are grave, not just in terms of health, but in terms of the knock-on effect for the cost to public services. Because as it says on page 12 of the report, £5.3 billion will be the cost by 2035 to public health because of exposure to poor quality air. Now that is a big bill to pay compared to what we're asking people to pay if they drive a polluting vehicle. Of course, a congestion charge is about raising money, but the ambition for this, the clean air charge, is that nobody pays it, because we want everybody to drive clean vehicles. We want everybody to be able to make the transition towards a cleaner vehicle or towards using public transport, and we want to green the fleet throughout Greater Manchester. So this should raise absolutely no money if it is a success, because everybody should change to a less polluting vehicle. And so it's not about raising money, it's not a congestion charge, this is about people's health and stopping premature deaths. And that's it. So thank you to those members who contributed. Councillor Shah, anything further to add? No, thank you.
No, I'd just like to thank the members in the room and our stakeholders. As Councillor Ateek mentioned, the taxi drivers, we had a meeting in collaboration with taxi drivers across Rochdale and Tameside. So we've worked very closely together to ensure that nobody suffers as a consequence, and to take their opinions on board and hold them in high regard, and we've done that. And they've been very, very great, actually. They've understood it and our commitment to public health.
Thanks, Councillor Shah. Welcome, Councillor Jabbar. You made it back. We've not done any of your items, so you can still do them all yourself. Right. Moving on. Item 7. Revisions to the cooperative approach to the use of council assets policy. So this report is about streamlining the process by which we can do community asset transfers and support community groups who wish to take on buildings that the council previously owned. I know that there have been some successful stories of that in the past, but there have also been some stories about where the process has been quite long and convoluted and people have given up, or as Councillor Shah is quite fond of saying, passed away because the process has taken that long. And so we are revising our policy as part of this to make sure that that is not the case, and we can be more we can be much quicker to make such transfers when there are community groups that can take on assets and support community activity out in the borough. So that is the purpose of this report. Do any members wish to speak on it? Do any officers wish to say anything that I've not said? No. Councillor Shah?
Yeah, I just really want to welcome this. I know a lot of work has gone into this, and officers with the right intent have tried for some years to get this process right, and it's been very difficult. But actually, it's a frustration for members of the community when they do express an interest and they're not fully aware of the circumstances of the situation, and they don't have the support or the expertise. This will simplify that process, because sometimes by the time a community organisation with the right intent has got towards the end of the process, they realise that this isn't actually for them. So I think it's efficient in a lot of ways, but absolutely I welcome this piece of work, and hopefully it will, pay great dividend.
All right, thanks, Councillor Shah. So do members agree the recommendations are set out at the front of the report? Agreed. Wonderful, thank you. So that takes us on to item 8, 3-year highways improvement programme. Councillor Shah.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is quite important, actually, because for many years we've had a great investment into our highways programme, and for many years we've focused our investment on primary routes. And as members and members of the public always contact us and say, well, actually you've done such a route, but this is a route in my ward or in near where I live, and it doesn't get a look in. So this new investment I really welcome, because it focuses on local members' involvement, and they have had consultation with residents in their ward. And this is about us expressing our absolute desire to get our basics right in ensuring that the roads they use are safe and appropriate for them. And members have had great input in this, so they've over the next couple of years we'll now see them move from primary routes to secondary routes, and this addresses some of the frustrations that residents have had over the years, and where members of this authority have felt unhelpful to residents because they've not been able to influence the agenda, but this has given them the freedom to do that. So this will focus on the roads, them kind of roads, and then it also seeks approval for all tender award decisions to come to me as a cabinet member and the appropriate officer, so the Deputy Chief Executive of People and Place, Helen Lockwood, in this case, and it will enable us to make sure that we adhere to the timeline. Access to the programme will be on the internet for people, residents to see, and the investment, like I said before, is just showing an improvement in the condition of the main routes, and therefore going forward the focus will be shifted to our local roads, so it will be greatly welcomed by, I know, the members but also residents.
Thanks, Councillor Shah. Councillor Roberts.
Welcome this additional investment in the roads, and can confirm that we have all been consulted in our role as ward members. I did, however, find the way that the list of roads have been separated out a bit confusing, so I had quite a lengthy email conversation about this, just to confirm that both the red and the amber are going to be done, because it kind of you could interpret it that it might mean that if we ran out of money we wouldn't do the amber ones. So just want to be clear when people look at the way, when we put the list up on the website, that it's really clear that we're doing all of these roads.
Thank you, and I think that's an important clarification to make at this point, because you're absolutely right. When you're invested in something so much, them kind of things you can sometimes overlook, but absolutely, thank you.
Any other members wish to speak? No. I will say that I found the consultation with ward members incredibly valuable. We had our meeting down in Failsworth to discuss what we wanted to do, and we did make some changes to the capital programme as a result of that, bringing some things forward and identifying areas that weren't as high a priority, where we could put something into roads that we were receiving lots of complaints about. And this was a priority of the administration, to make sure that we put money into roads, because this is bread and butter that people come to councillors more often than anything else about. I field a lot of complaints about roads, indeed, and then this is about being able to respond to those concerns, and we have that local accountability now where we can meet and we help shape the programme as elected members. And so when people do come to us, we are accountable, and we can say, well, we've put your road on the list because we had the opportunity to do so, or the reason we've not done your road is because we did this one down the road, and this is why we chose that. And it's about putting power in the hands of elected members and making us champions for our local areas in the way that I don't feel that we were under the previous iteration of the capital programme on highways. So thank you, Councillor Shah, for your work on this. Are members happy to agree the recommendations I set out at the front of the report? Okay. Thank you. That takes us to item 9, Revenue Monitor and Capital Investment Programme. Councillor Jabbar.
Thanks, Chair. Apologies for coming late. I was at the GM Green Summit like you, but stayed there to the end, still flying Oldham flag, so it was for a good cause. Yeah, so this report, Chair, is the quarterly report we bring to update you on the revenue spend and the capital spend. This will be the last before, obviously, the financial year ends. So this report is up to December 2018. The revenue budget is suggesting that we'd have a surplus of around £250,000. The capital programme is suggesting that the spend will be just over 48 million. This quite a significant slippage on the capital programme. That will be spent in the future years, so it's not lost. The actual budget isn't lost. All it is just actually slipped. The programme slipped. I think everyone's familiar with the content of this report, or at least the style of it. I'm happy, Chair, if anybody's got any questions, to answer those questions.
Do any members wish to speak or ask questions on this report? No? No, you got away with that. Do members agree the recommendations as set out at the front of the report?
Agreed.
Agreed, thank you. Moving on to item 10, Councillor Jabbar again, local taxation and benefits discretionary policies.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Number of items being covered within this report. The most important one, Chair, is the fact that we are proposing in this report to make a council tax exemption for care leavers up to the age of 25. So we believe this is the right thing to do, especially for someone who has been in care, and we want to give them all the support possible to make sure they start an independent life. And I think having talked to colleagues and also consulted other local authorities within the GM, we feel this is the right thing to do. This is despite the government actually taking away more than £7 million from our business support grant. We feel this is the right thing to do. There's also, Chair, within the report, a number of other initiatives that we are taking to support people who will be financially in a very difficult situation to pay their council tax. Again, I think this is the role of a central government, not a role of a local government, where we've seen a massive cut to our central government grants. But despite that, we feel we have a duty to our residents who are in extreme financial difficulties to offer them something. So those are detailed in the report. Again, I'm quite happy to answer any questions people may have. I don't know whether, Anne, you want to come in to add anything to what I've just said?
Just in relation to the discretionary rate relief policy, there's just an update to that as well, which largely encompasses changes which central government had made to some of the relief. So it's really just bringing those up to date, rather than the council tax policies that Councillor Jabbar was speaking about.
Thank you, Anne, and thank you, Councillor Jabbar. Do any members wish to speak on this item? Councillor Shah.
Just to pick up on Councillor Jabbar's point, actually this is exactly, he's absolutely right, this is a role for central government, but again, as a Labour administration, we're proving that we'll pick up where government have failed to do anything for our residents, and that's the whole point of this. It's about helping those that are really vulnerable and exposed and are being penalised by the current government. We're going to step up as a Labour administration to do what's right by them.
Thanks, Councillor Shah. Councillor Jakes indicating.
Yeah, I'm delighted that this council have decided to really support young care leavers in terms of rate relief. And I just want to know, are we quite pioneering in this, or do other local authorities do the same thing?
Well, firstly, Councillor Shah, thank you for your supportive comments. I think it is important that we do that, because if we don't, we've seen in the past people have left care, but then unfortunately, because of all kinds of issues, primarily because of financial issues, they've ended up needing more support from local authority and other agencies. So we believe this is the right step to do, despite the fact that we're going to have to foot the bill. Yeah, when we did this a couple of years back, Paul, we started off with supporting people up to the age of 21. We were one of the first local authority in GM to do it. I think the other one was Rochdale from memory. And we're again one of the first few in GM to do it. So I'd like to think we're at the forefront of this. The reason being is, as we debated the other day at the council chamber, is because some people have been really hit hard by the reform that this government has brought in, particularly the welfare reform. So in the past, people who would have got 100% relief for council tax, and government would have paid that. But from April 2013, the government has decided that individual authorities will have to develop their own scheme and decide what kind of discount they will need to give. And that's shifting the burden again on the local authority. But despite the financial pressure, Chair, we feel this is the right thing to do. And I'm glad two Cabinet colleagues have spoken in support of it. Obviously, when people leave care, the first thing we want to do is for them to give them the confidence, but also the financial support, so that they can stand on their own feet and hopefully start an independent life for the rest of their life without actually needing any support from any agencies. So that's why we're doing it.
Thank you, Councillor Jabbar. Councillor Raymond.
Thanks, Chair. Fully support this report. I think it's quite refreshing, Councillor Jabbar. For the last 10 years, as a councillor, all we seem to be doing is administering the severe cuts imposed by the central government and on all services, particularly to vulnerable people. And I think I echo what Councillor Aruja said, that I think this draws a clear line between why I believe we came into politics for, and that was to give relief and support people who are vulnerable, as opposed to the central government that's all it does is it's making cuts. So I fully support this, and I think this is a welcome move, and I'm sure it'll be welcomed by the people who will benefit this. And like I said, as a councillor, it's quite refreshing that we're not discussing another cut to vulnerable people, but we are approving something that will obviously help these individuals. Thank you.
Yeah. So can I come in, please? Yeah. Thank you. I think, Councillor Atikur Rahman, thank you for that comment. But I think here's the real issue. Government have very cleverly moved the burden on to local government. So when they introduced the universal credit, they should have included this council tax as part of universal credit. Because don't forget, they were talking about amalgamating 6 legacy benefits into one. So housing benefit was one of them, but not council tax rebate. And you know the reason why? Because if they passed it on to us, they could withdraw the subsidy without the claimant feeling, and it will be the blame of the council for not giving them the benefits. So it's a clever way of taking the money out but not being responsible for the reduction. So that's what they've done. It should have always been part of universal credit, this council tax rebate, because that's what they said. We're amalgamating all the benefits into one. Well, council tax rebate isn't one, and instead what they've done is actually reduce the subsidy they give us each year to support that, and we're having to pick it up. But I think it's the right thing to do despite having the pressure, because if we don't support these people, they will end up needing our support elsewhere. So thank you, really appreciate that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Jabbar. Do members agree the recommendations as set out in the report? Agreed. Thank you very much. Councillor Jabbar, it's you again. Payroll system?
Thank you, Chair. So what we're asking here is that we need a new system, Chair, IT system, to help us with the HR and payroll. What we're asking for is authority to try soft market testing to see which is the best system to go for. Because at the moment, the system that we have is not delivering what we're looking for. And we want greater efficiency, and we want things to be a lot easier than what it is currently. So that's essentially what this is. There's a more confidential report later on in the agenda.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Jabbar. So unless there's anybody that thinks they can squeeze a political debate out of procuring a new payroll system, can we just accept the recommendations and then consider the rest of the report in Part B of the agenda? Agreed. Thank you. All right, Councillor oh, it's me this one actually. Well, it's both of us, isn't it?
Yeah.
So again, this item 12 is non-domestic rates. This is to be considered, the detail of this will be considered in Part B of the agenda. So if we can just ask members to accept the recommendations, and then we'll move into Part B. Agreed. Thank you. Okay, so we need to move and second the exclusion of press and public.
Moved.
Second. Agreed?
Yep.
Agreed? All right, cameras off, please.